Talk to me.
Ready. Standing by.
Light it up.
This is Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence.
There's spies everywhere.
Cassian Andor. I need all the heroes I can get.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
They're so fat and satisfied. 10 men feel like 100. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
A 6-year-old boy.
Hang on!
Hello and welcome to Andor and More. I am Travis Fishburne.
I am Alex Brunel.
And joining us this week, once again, we are honored to have Sir Adam Collins. I believe you recently got knighted.
Yes, I was recently dubbed with that title by Marisol, but which makes I hear it means it counts more. It counts more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, yeah. But yeah, I'm happy to be back. I have a lot of thoughts this week, and I by the skin of my teeth, I was able to binge another Star Wars program that we may or may not get to. So.
Oh yeah. One it's hard to not talk about when
I'm pretty fired up about it.
Yeah,
because
that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's easy to get fired up. I think last week we spent maybe like 35 minutes talking about Andor, and then like another hour and a half maybe talking about Tales of the Jedi.
Well, I will keep it concise, but I have a little. I definitely that show got me pretty fired up about things that I've been wanting to see for a long time and didn't realize I wanted to see them.
Yeah,
that's the fun.
Exactly. But we are covering episode 9 of Andor, titled "Nobody's Listening!" Exclamation point. It is very emphatic, and stated in the episode as well, which I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Adam, what were your thoughts on this episode of Andor?
Well, going into this week, obviously we're in the thick of this arc right now with the prison, and the thing I'm loving about it is just how much I feel the stagnance of it because of Cassian, what he's going through. I love the way this entire thing was set up with him trying to get away from it again. Like I think it's true to the character that he doesn't just nobly fall into line right away, and he does attempt to get away from it one more time, but to get drawn back into it in the most ridiculous way imaginable, most arbitrary way imaginable anyway. And then he ends up in this prison. Seeing it play out the way it has so far, I love it. I love how claustrophobic it feels, despite being able to get, even when we get away from the prison, the themes of everything that's happening around it accentuate that sense of claustrophobia when I'm watching it.
Yes.
Like whether it's Cyril Karn, whether it's Dedra Meero, even though she's on the up and up, I still feel her bashing against a wall, and I love the way that's written. I really dug this episode on its own, but also, admittedly, because we know it's setting up. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but you can feel the energy at the end of this. You know it's setting up something big.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Big exciting things to come. Hopefully next week, but we'll find out. Alex, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that this episode broke the kind of 3-episode mini arcs within the 12-episode arc of this season that I feel like had kind of been going on, where we had 2 build-up episodes and then the big bombastic episode. I was expecting this to be a bigger episode. I'm not disappointed that it wasn't, but my expectation was that it would be a bigger episode. Story-wise, I didn't see how they could get there. So at this point, I'm glad that they didn't go for that, because I think it needed this more time and more character work to get to that point in the story. And who knows? Maybe this season finishes and Andor's still in jail. He has another season to do something else. But I'm
That would
continuing
be
to
such a crazy left turn for
I
them
know.
to leave him in there for another 3 episodes.
But I really dug this episode, man. It's it's bleak. It's just really bleak. And I love when Star Wars gets bleak. Because it's not that often. Star Wars is a very hopeful thing, but this is the show that leads to the hopeful actions. This isn't a show of hopeful actions. This is a show of like, we're gonna try and we're probably gonna die, or these kinds of things, rather than the wide-eyed I'm gonna save the galaxy that we get through most of the major films.
Yeah, and because it makes sense. This show takes place time-wise, like you said, before the hopeful things happen. This is the show that takes place where things are supposed to like get the darkest and the worst.
Right, and like
So it makes sense.
It requires people being angry too. It requires
Mhm.
like people who are so fed up that they're going to start fighting. They don't know that there is hope yet. They're just so mad about what's happening. They don't feel that they have a choice.
Yeah, that's like Luthen's whole point. Is Luthen is like, it's got to get worse. Like,
right.
People think there might be people who are complaining, but he's like, we got to really show them how bad it is.
Yeah.
In order for there to be the spark of hope that will ignite and burn down the different movies.
Well,
I missed Luthen this week too.
Yeah,
I know he. I don't need him to be shoehorned in there, but I did. His absence was felt.
yeah.
And this interesting development with Vel and Mon being related was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. It's not something I even considered. It's not that it was like this big, shocking reveal. It's just most people watching this, that wasn't even something to even speculate about, and it's just a fun contextual thing that makes sense in the story. And they're cousins, not sisters, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So like, even more believable that we don't, because like I'm like a Mothma sibling seems pretty significant, and I'm sure she has some somewhere, but none that are in the fight, it would seem.
Galactically insignificant.
And to have her, I like seeing how Vel's operating. She and Cassian kind of started at opposite ends here. She was already in the thick of it. He was on the outside, and now he's buried in the system. And she's kind of like in disguise on Coruscant, trying to blend in and do recon, but she's a little lost as well. She seems a little rudderless without a fight right now, waiting around for Cinta to become, available, I guess. But I think she has unrealistic expectations about that relationship at this point too, and I love how that's been expressed repeatedly, and I like the way she repeats Cinta's dialogue back in this episode. I forget the line exactly, but about getting serious about this, and how it's not about ourselves and our personal relationships.
We take whatever's left, I think, is the line. It just
great line.
Yeah.
Great concise line that with repeat viewings will be very memorable. First time out, obviously I was grasping, but yeah, it's a good line.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole reveal, it reminded me a lot, like this whole aspect of Mon Mothma and Vel and that relationship. It reminded me of, from the Clone Wars, Satine and Bo-Katan, because it's revealed near the end that they are sisters. And
that's right.
So you've got Satine in this like regal figurehead, like she's trying to change things like up front, and is getting like lost in the bureaucracy of things. And Bo-Katan, who's like, I'm boots on the ground and I'm gonna like force things to happen my own way. And I think there's just a lot of parallels between like these two pairings.
That's a very good point. And I hadn't considered that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I just, it just goes to show you how awesome it is to see Mon Mothma like step into the spotlight, because those of us who've read the books and seen the shows and stuff, we knew that there was a story like this out there for her. But to see it like on to actually have some focus on it for once, to focus on the politics of Star Wars in a way that is very relatable to the present day. Like, I think people are really critical of the prequels for how, literal they were in terms of talking about trade routes and whatnot. And a lot of us have grown affectionate towards that aspect of those movies. I have, at least, for what it is. But I like that now, like, we're finally going back to the Senate, and it visually looks familiar. But I love all these. I love how the mood there is different.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way people are talking over her, and not in a way where they're excited about discourse like in the prequels. They're just trying to get out of there, literally turning off the lights, little pods floating away. I'm fascinated by it. And she's just in there just trying to AOC it, just like, listen to me, like I actually give a shit. And
it's crazy for like the amount of people who are like the Senate and the whole political intrigue of the prequels is boring. Like, at least, like you said, those, like, they were always full, those Senate rotundas, and there was always a whole lot of energy in those scenes. And now it's so weird to see it, and it's like, it's like running at half capacity, if that. You see, like, half of the things aren't even like connected to the walls anymore.
I want to just go on the record and put myself in the camp as not being a fan of the space politics of the prequels still, or at least the way the space politics are portrayed. Trade routes are exciting to no children, and that is a stone cold fault.
That's why you've got Jar Jar, Alex.
I know, but despite myself, when I go back and watch them now, I like some of the what people would consider boring aspects of them more than I feel like maybe I should. It's sort of an involuntary thing with me, Alex, for what it's worth.
That's fair.
I never
let those movies into my heart. That's the problem.
Well, they're there for better or worse for me.
Yeah, they're on my shelf in many formats, but they're not truly in my heart, and that's a disconnect I've not really been able to bridge in my how long has it been?
But
since
is Andor helping recontextualize some of that imagery?
Well, a lot of Star Wars TV has been doing that for me. I think like Mando and Filoni gets it. Like because we've talked about this on the show before. When Dave on that Disney Gallery Mandalorian episode, where he summarizes the prequel trilogy as he sees it, I'm like, I wish you could have made those movies, man, because like I want to watch the movie that you watched. You know, I don't want to have to like imagine all of those emotions on top of this like husk like production that I'm watching, and that's a little harsh, and I do have affection for those movies, but that's been my favorite thing about one of my favorite things about this TV era of storytelling is getting those prequel elements recontextualized into more dramatically coherent stories where you really feel the weight of that kind of stuff. And that's also why I so loved Jimmy Smits coming back in Kenobi, just getting to see like Bail Organa do some real business.
I'm here for all the Bail cameos.
Totally, 100%.
I
laughed the first time I saw him on screen in Star Wars when I was a kid. I was like, what is Jimmy Smits doing in this movie? Especially that first outfit they gave him in Attack of the Clones. Oh yeah. He kind of reeled in this fashion over the years, but that first round of outfits, the prequels, are a little rough. I mean, if there's anything it's going to show all this work in recontextualizing this prequel stuff, it's that the elements work, and like there's a reason that like I haven't like ditched those movies entirely, because the elements that work do really work, and I'm just glad that we're in an era now where everybody who really appreciates that stuff has kind of grown up a bit, and we can get that stuff in maybe a more interesting context. Well, it shows you, like, you know, hindsight's 2020, but like, when you look back at the prequels, it's easy to imagine a universe in which those movies had been a more collaborative project, and if George had been, you know, the nucleus of it, and he had collaborators like Filoni back then, I think those movies could have been more popular than, you know, not only than they were, but, you know, than a lot of Star Wars movies in general. Well,
That said,
they wouldn't have been jokes for like a decade. That's for sure.
Understood. That said, I like that Clone Wars started the tradition of filling in the gaps in interesting ways, and now we're seeing that come full circle with these live action shows, but also legacy wise with things like Tales of the Jedi. And
Yeah.
I'm still playing catch up with the Bad Batch, but I like that aesthetic is started to. It's been honed so well.
It
That
has.
when I watch it now, it's something that is part of Star Wars. It's part of the way I interpret it. And I actually love that we have this animated world where we don't have to worry about getting all the same actors or digitally copying them. We can just get the characters on screen. That's all that matters. And they can be any age, and we can go any era. And we need that flexibility in this world so bad.
Yeah, no, Alex is bringing that up last week, how it'd be so great to see Tales of the Jedi or something like it just extend into original trilogy or post-original trilogy and a sequel trilogy where you don't have to worry about, like you said, the actors, the legacy actors like a Mark Hamill or a Harrison Ford or people we don't have anymore like Carrie.
We need a Clone Wars or Rebels for the bridge between the originals and the sequels for sure. Because Mandalorian, what I love about it is that it does take place in post Return of the Jedi world. That's a fascinating era. And Resistance was not something I ever really could glom onto. I maybe I'll go back and give it another chance. But
I don't. We just kind of don't acknowledge Resistance on this show.
The edges were too soft for me to get invested. Rebels and Clone Wars had that edge. Even when there were fluffier episodes occasionally, they still had the edge.
They were still incredibly violent.
Yes.
Even the fluffy episodes guaranteed someone died in that episode.
And then Tales of the Jedi came
episodes, were even like at least dark. Like say like A Sunny Day in the Void, where it's like it's weird, but it gets to those dark places where,
I mean, even the episode where the droids just go on, where R2 and 3PO just go on adventures, and 3PO like completely ruins a society. In the process of getting like Gulliver's Traveled.
That episode felt very Star Trek in a good way.
Yeah, no, I that's one of my favorite episodes of Clone Wars, actually.
Whenever C-3PO does data things, I get really excited.
Yes,
but I with the prequel stuff that's holding over into Andor. What I really appreciate is the vernacular, how we're getting a lot of jargon from the prequel era into this era, and it helps blend it in a very tangible way. The thing I love about Andor overall is how we are lingering in these corners of Star Wars we've brushed up against. We've seen certain aspects of the bureaucracy, the boredom, the day-to-day aspects of society, but not this much. And it really, for me, it gives so much rich texture to Star Wars that I hadn't considered before, that I thought was reserved really only for the books.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, just getting the glimpse into the Imperial detention system is still kind of the most unbelievable thing to me. And one of the things in talk about recontextualizing things that you didn't used to like, I'm really enjoying Andy Serkis in this show, and I'm not generally like a fan of the guy. So I this is like my favorite
Picking
Andy Serkis
all the
role.
fights tonight, Alex.
Oh,
by the
that's
way,
fine.
He's like, prequels, screw them. Fair game. But I haven't heard anyone call out Andy Serkis in a long time. That guy's got big arms too. You better watch out.
No, I don't want to meet him face to face, and I'm sure I'm not saying he's like untalented, but I think that
he'll come at you with his trunks.
I feel from the interviews I've seen with him that he has this sense of himself as something more than like a really solid character actor, which is I think what he is. He's not some sort of mocap god, like there are legions of animators behind him making sure that those things work.
Alex is a Toby Kebbell guy.
Yeah. I'm a Doug Jones guy.
Oh yeah.
I'm a
we're
Doug
all
Jones guy.
guys.
But But you know, like I'm not so, like it's not like Circus is a hack or anything. Like he's a fine actor. I just like don't.
But you like just seeing him on camera for a change. That's always
yeah, it's like
refreshing in
when
my
I see
opinion.
him like in the MCU, it's like okay, there's Andy Serkis doing his hamming it up thing that I whatever. But like this, like I don't know, he's chewing the fat and doing it really well, and like the deep seated rage and everything that he's doing really good. I love these scenes in the prison.
I love that he's already had to dispel Kino and Snoke connections.
We talked about that a little last week, and it's like I likened it to like the bigger Luke theory. Like it's unreal to me that there's anybody that is like a real believer of that. Are you familiar with bigger Luke?
I was gonna say, Adam, are you familiar with the bigger Luke thing? Alex told me this years ago, and I was like, what?
Just go look it up online, but there's basically a theory that there are 2 Lukes in Star Wars, and one is bigger. And you can tell this in certain shots by his relation to Han Solo, and like it's there's so much text, it's really hard to decide if it's a joke or not. And then there's like a converse theory, which is the smaller Luke theory, which is not very popular, and apparently the smaller Luke people and the bigger Luke people like really cannot have a conversation.
Well, I love that there's like this schism between
it's like Star
true
Wars
Luke,
flat
but-
earthers.
Yeah. I mean, like in I'm sorry, but in a universe where the Emperor pre-cloned himself, but not to look like himself, to look like someone else, and we don't know when he started it, and then he did finally clone himself, but he couldn't be a corporeal being for a long. The Palpatine stuff in Rise of Skywalker, I know they're still like working on like the seeds of that story.
Yeah,
like
that's
retrofitting that insanity.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
a
know
very
what?
wrinkly shirt that needs iron.
Honestly, have you guys seen the Nick Cage movie Mandy?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Panos Cosmatos, that director, he did not to get too off track here, but Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix.
Oh dude, I texted Dustin
Alex
and Travis about
already
this.
like
I'm like, if you just watch one episode of the show, watch this episode. It's
The Viewing.
unbelievable. It's so
So here's my pitch, Alex. Here's my pitch.
great. Get Panos to do Star Wars.
Get Panos to do the Palpatine Snoke clone
Oh my
story.
god.
And I don't care if it's an animation. I don't give a shit. Just let him do it because it'll make
my
more sense
God.
coming through his mind than anyone else's at this point.
I wish. See, this is why I don't like spend time ruminating on things that I wish would happen with franchises that I like, because they're all so fringe that I would just get so psyched about the concept that would never happen. Because that would be like Nicholas Winding Refn being able to tell a story but directing Star Wars. You know, it's like that's like Panos like has such like his work has such a distinct Panos look to it, and it's not. I mean, it's distinct in how well he does it, but also has a very strong sense of story and narrative. Whereas I don't think Refn does, and that's a whole separate thing. And that's not a knock. It's just like that's not the thing. But my God,
I was really hoping you were going to call out Nicholas Winding Refn as well, Alex.
I love his work. I love his work. Just story is not the reason I watch those movies.
Yeah.
Well, if we got like the Exegol project,
Dude,
limited series, movie, whatever, and
That'd
I'm
be
not saying literally needs to be Panos, but I feel like
but it
because
should
we're so out there with that story at this point, to reel it back in to make it worth the journey, I think you need to take some big swings. And,
So your suggestion is to go full Lovecraft with it.
yes, and honestly, I know despite how grounded Andor is, I love the Palpatine mentions in this show. Every time he comes up, I get excited. Every time he gets acknowledged, and my hope is not only to see him in some capacity, not necessarily this season. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I'd like to see the Emperor. I've mentioned this before, but like, if Mon Mothma had a scene with him where she had to confront him in some capacity, I want someone to have to physically be in a room with the Emperor and I want the Emperor to kill someone in cold blood in front of other Imperials with his Sith powers, and I want it to be terrifying. I want it to be another senator. I want it to be someone he's making an example of to demonstrate his actual power.
Right.
Even though I know his thing is about not showing that aspect of himself to people on a regular basis. I think at this point, to suss out the people in the Senate who are a danger to him, the Mon Mothmas, I think something like that would be amazing. Like, you could make a scene with the Emperor the scariest thing in the world.
Totally. And I do think that this show is ripe for a cameo. I mean, like, it does seem like the most, I would say, hands-off show, that live action show that has come out so far.
Sure.
It seems like there are like as much as I like Mandalorian and, you know, mostly really like Book of Boba Fett and really liked Kenobi, it felt like there were a lot of cooks in those kitchens. Feels like there are less and more focused cooks in the Andor kitchen, but it still feels like it's a Star Wars show, and some kind of like bigger universe cameo is kind of inevitable.
Feels like a very focused group of cooks in which occasionally somebody runs in and they have got, we've got some like Star Wars spices. Can we like sprinkle this in occasionally?
Yes, that is a great way of putting it.
But Saw Gerrera obviously feels incredibly natural.
Yes,
but I think there's more
yeah.
characters like that. Palpatine is a character who would make sense at some point. We don't want him to be a series regular.
No.
But like working up to a big appearance, I think could be impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I saw there was a headline going around. It was an exclusive. I think it was from Collider that said, next season, Andor is going to Yavin. The show of Andor is going to Yavin 4. And I'm like, okay. Like, but also it should. It's like telling us like, you're going to see Darth Vader in full costume in episode 3. It's like, we better, like, because otherwise.
I don't know about you guys, but to this day, I'm still traumatized by the imagery of Yavin 4 from playing Battlefront in all the platforms. Like, I've played Battlefront since the PS2 days, and every single version of Battlefront has Yavin levels. And especially in the latest iteration, I just, especially online, kids are so good about hiding in the Yavin base. That is such a frustrating place for people to murk you and sneak around corners and out of shrubbery. It's awful.
This is true.
I've never played
I haven't
Battlefront.
played Battlefront.
That's my first Battlefront tip.
Battlefront,
It's a fun game.
the most recent Battlefront, the campaign is great. It's very straightforward. What's her name?
Gina Kavankar?
Gina Kavankar, Adian Verso, or
that's
Indian,
it. Yeah,
Indian,
Versio.
Yeah, I like that character a lot. But
I own them. I just haven't played them yet.
Yeah, and then we had the Fallen Order discussion last time. I feel like
I just played Fallen Order this past week.
Did you finish it?
I did.
Oh, congrats!
That was a blast.
Yeah, that final, like, the way it ties into a lot of the stuff in the Kenobi series is fun too. They really honor a lot of that.
I liked that. I did think it was funny though. Like, and this isn't like a knock on the story. Like, it all made sense, everything. But the ending, just being like, well, we got the thing. What's next, guys?
Yeah.
Was just like really funny to me, because you're playing this whole game. You're playing it for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you get the thing, and then your guy just smashes the thing, and that's like what has to happen. And it's fine. It still makes sense within the story. I just thought it was funny.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm excited about the sequel, but I do hope that they bring some of these characters into the shows that we're watching and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've got like an actual, physical actor that they used for mocap and voice and
for all the main characters in that game, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I loved. I can't remember her name anymore, but the Night Sister character.
Yes, I can't remember.
That was my favorite.
The one who's she's kind of vibing with Cal the whole time.
Yeah, and then like she winds up joining the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for whatever reason, the animation on her in the game seemed like way better than every other character. I didn't really and it wasn't like the other characters weren't good. The animation, like the graphics, were kind of nuts. I'm not used to
I think it
playing
had to
modern
do
video
with
games yet.
I think it had to do with her complexion because she was more Star Warsy, with the Dathomirian tattoos and whatnot. I think it lent whenever people look more traditionally human in those games, that game looked good overall. But
That's a
I think
very
the
good
next
point.
one, because it's designed for these next gen systems, it'll be a little sharper. But I know what you mean about like the floating eyeballs and
Yeah.
like they look good enough that I'm immersed. But
Oh,
if I'm
totally.
staring, if I looked them in the eye, I'm a little.
Well, no, that's fine. I want that to be an aspect of video games that I play. Otherwise, I'm just like freaked out. So like, because I'm already having a hard time adjusting to playing games that look like video games do 3 years ago, which is Jedi Fallen Order. Like Cyberpunk is like overwhelming to me just graphically. It looks great, but like just the amount of stuff that I'm just like sitting there thinking like my computer is rendering this nonsense in real time. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like I don't need it to look this good. I don't know that my eyes necessarily are always
Yeah.
worthy of the effort going into these graphics.
Yeah. And like I'm here for it. I have the video card for it now, but it's just like at the same time I'm used to playing, like Mario games. That's kind of like
Right.
it. But anyway, Star Wars is fun. And Jedi Fallen Order was a super fun game.
It was. So with this week, the other thing that really got me, I just want to mention it before I spaced on it, was poor Olaf. Poor Olaf,
yeah.
that whole episode, man. Like you felt it. You felt the pendulum swinging the whole time, and just the sweat, the physicality of his deterioration. I really felt it the whole episode, and I felt it for him, but the way it also again mirrored so many things that were happening for other people.
Yeah.
And the way Cassian and Kino rally around him at the end, and it's this undeniable moment of hopelessness with a guy who really didn't deserve to go out like that with such a lack of ceremony.
Yeah, totally agree. And excellent makeup on this guy, this actor, Christopher Fairbank. Episode as well.
Yeah,
he's a popular character actor. Most people know him from Batman, the '89 movie.
Yeah, and he was also in Alien 3.
Yeah, he was one of the prisoners on Alien 3.
Oh, and Fifth Element. That's where. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he died of a stroke, which isn't the first time I've heard of anybody having a stroke in Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe in a book, but
yeah.
Like we had a heart attack this season. We've had a stroke. I'm honestly loving this, like
just like how
this
based
kind
in
of
reality
Star
this
Wars.
in Star Wars is.
Yes, I want someone to fall down the stairs next week. Like, just an incidental thing.
Like we keep seeing the toilet now. Like the toilet is like a thing in Andor now.
Yeah. And they actually can call it a toilet sometimes now.
Right. They said toilet, didn't they?
Yeah, they weren't calling it. I'm rusty.
Fresher.
What's the Star Wars? The fresher, yeah. Because they mentioned the fresher. Horatio Sands calls it the fresher in the pilot for Mandalorian.
Right, which was I remember talking about that. And like that was the first time a toilet, like the bathroom, was ever referenced in Star Wars. How far we've come, guys.
He referenced using the bathroom and the holiday special like in one breath.
Yes, he did.
Horatio made it count.
Yeah.
So I also I like how much we don't know about everything that's going on in the prison. This communication between windows.
Oh, I love it.
And then we finally get the rundown from the doctor at the end. But even then, we're still not entirely sure what's going on. The very end of the episode where Andy Serkis has the line that a lot of people rallied around, where he says no more than 12 in response to the how many guards question. Did you guys see that got the crowded bar giant screen meme where
I saw that
people are watching it on the big screen at the bar and then they all erupt into cheers? Yeah, I love that. I love that. It was perfect for that one, because honestly, guys, I'm not making this up. I was watching that episode. I often have to watch this show at work because Marisol can't watch it yet, so I watch it away from her because we're going to rewatch it at some point when she has time. So I'm trying to just keep spoilers away from her as much as possible. And I was watching it at work, and that happened, and I screamed.
Yeah.
I yelled. I had an involuntary reaction to that because there's so much tension at that point. You need some sense of release so bad. And even that, it's not even a victory. It's just him acknowledging, yeah, let's maybe kind of do something next week. And you're like, oh my God, hell yeah.
Yeah.
This guy who's been in the system for years and has like held out this hope, like I've only got so many more shifts left. It's gonna happen for me.
Oh, I relate to Kino so hard. All the shitty jobs I've had in my life.
Yeah.
I really I understand what Kino, where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to call out the horrifying interrogation techniques that the ISB is currently employing.
Oh God,
yes.
I loved that. That might be the darkest thing we've ever heard in Star Wars. A species who was obliterated by the Empire, and you are who make a unique cry when they die, and then you are forced to listen to the sounds of the last children of this species as they die, like on a loop in your brain, and that's the torture. And
yeah, it's like,
holy crap.
Recently rewatching A Clockwork Orange, I'm like, oh, this is like that.
Yeah,
but for your ears.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of or seen the Werner Herzog documentary Grizzly Man?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I almost made a joke about that instead.
Okay, so you know what I'm referring to, Travis?
Yeah, I was like, the client from The Mandalorian, they had him test out this footage first where he's like listening to it. He's like, no, nobody should ever do this.
Exactly. Because, that real life moment where, we are watching it and we know, there's this person's death is recorded, the audio is recorded on camera, but Herzog decides we're not going to share this with the world. What you're imagining is worse. And that's the principle abides here. It's so horrifying, and the way it's shot and edited and the way, her eyes shift to the camera. It's pretty scary. I'm not going to deny it.
And then as the torture is beginning and she starts screaming and the person walks out of the room and the door closes, it's a direct visual reference to A New Hope when Leia is beginning to get tortured. Starts screaming, door closes, person wipes camera tilts down, feet wipe frame. It's the same shot. It's great.
Just to reinforce what kind of nightmares can be going on behind every door.
Because all we see in Star Wars in the torture droid or the interrogation droid or whatever they call it is just like needles and some kind of injection, and it's just like, yes, that looks scary. And like even when Han is being tortured in that thing, it's just like, okay, sparks flying at your eyes, that looks very bad. But we don't have any further context on exactly how it's messing.
The thing that freaked me out about that was always Harrison Ford's disembodied screams.
Oh yeah,
that messed me up. Just thinking about what they were doing to my poor Han. Like I was like, Harrison Ford's the toughest guy in the world. If he's screaming that hard, it must be awful.
It's gonna be bad. Alex, I know we've talked about it before. Adam, have either of you heard in the original Star Wars radio drama, they have the torture scene with Leia?
Oh yeah.
That's a horrifying audible sequence.
And it's at the same time it's horrifying, it's also cheeseball because they're both her and Vader are narrating so much of it.
They are. Yeah.
But I can't remember the name of the actress playing Leia in that. But but she sounds pained.
Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
God damn it. No. I need to actually listen to that radio drama because I ingest a lot of podcasts and audiobooks.
And Sax.
I drive a lot. Say that again?
Anne Sachs is the actress's name.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were saying and sax. Wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
No,
and by the way, sax.
Yeah, no, totally listen to all the radio dramas. They're super fun. I remember when because the Return of the Jedi one didn't do one for Return of the Jedi until the mid 90s. I think it was 1996. And I remember actually like fervently tuning into NPR on like Saturday mornings for 6 weeks to listen to the Return of the Jedi radio drama.
Oh God, if only we could bring that back in a meaningful way. Like there are podcasts obviously that honor that tradition, and they have their niche audiences, and that's cool. But it'd be cool for something to land in the mainstream for us to all like reconnect with, because until we're in a true post-apocalyptic landscape, I don't think the radio drama is going to be fully rediscovered and appreciated.
Well,
because yeah,
I agree to an extent, but at the same time, Audible, like, because the audience is there, and it's just the audience is people with Audible subscriptions, because Audible's been doing these like original audio dramas, original audio stories. There's the audio adaptation of Sandman, which just did its 3rd season and winds up on the New York Times bestseller list for these things like every time. I don't know what that is. But there's that. There's also like there's a couple Batman ones that are supposed to be really good. There's a Wolverine one. So like these things exist in the I mean in England, this stuff never died, by the way. There's like 4 Doctor Who radio dramas that come out every month and have for decades. It's unreal the amount of Doctor Who content that gets put out.
Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Those, yeah.
And then that stuff gets adapted all the time. Like even Good Omens, before that got adapted into an Amazon show. Like I think 4 years prior to that, there was a BBC radio drama version of it that was like pretty good, pretty funny. I think Dirk Maggs did that too, who's like the god of all these things. Dirk Maggs did a lot of the Hitchhiker's Guide ones, and he's doing Sandman now. But I would actually argue that format is more present now than it has been for a long time. It's just that radio as a format doesn't work for it anymore.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I more was just thinking of the fact that like nowadays, a lot of these things, because they become more niche and more focused on specific audiences, what I miss is like you said you tuned into NPR. It was a little bit different, but like that's why I used to enjoy Prairie Home Companion for similar reasons. I love those like narratives on like on the radio. And when I listen to a Star Wars book, an audio book, they are radio plays. And they have sound effects, they have music sometimes, like they're really, really great. And I sometimes wish hardcore Star Wars fans know about those, but I feel like there should be a way to I guess what I'm grasping at here is I feel like there should be a more accessible gateway drug for the masses for these kinds of things. I want to expose people to this kind of stuff. So like you realize not everything has to have a $500 million budget or be on screen even necessarily. If you don't have the time or the energy to get into a book, people need to understand what an audio play, whether it's a traditional radio play or an actual book, what that can be.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's a format I've enjoyed my whole life. Star Wars too. There are some great Star Wars like fully produced audio adaptations.
Prior to like the Star Wars audiobooks turning into the productions that they have become, I used to read Star Wars books and listen to the soundtracks while I read them.
That's cool.
And it would sometimes like things would like match up in a certain way. You're like, oh, this is awesome. But
I did that with Lord of the Rings with Lord of the Rings after the movies came out, going back to the books with the soundtracks for sure.
Now I want to get back. Now I want to like listen to some Star Wars novels.
What?
I've
heard I have yet to get into it, but the Shadow of the Sith novel that came out over the summer, the adventures of Luke and Lando, that sets up the Rise of Skywalker, I hear is very good.
Cool.
I hear that's one of the best like Rise of Skywalker tie-ins so far.
Yeah.
You know what? My thing with Star Wars novels right now, or I guess for the last 8 years, has been I there was a time I was working at this job. I had like time to read books during lunch, and I decided like I'm gonna finally read like the Thrawn books. I'm gonna read like Heir to the Empire and that trilogy, and then the Hand of Thrawn duology that followed it. I read those books. I friggin' loved them. I was gonna start like, I was like starting to like get a grasp on Star Wars EU and all this stuff, and then Disney bought Star Wars. And then they decided that all of that stuff was not worth learning anymore. And I just got like so dejected with that feeling that I still haven't like picked up newer Star Wars novels, even though I want to. Like and like I'm in all the I'm in on all the comic books. So I'm like here for the new canon. It's fine. It just felt like I just read 5 like really big novels and they were like really good, and now and now
I struggled with that news as well. And what I do like, not to give them too much credit, but what I do like is that they have set a precedent of, you know, not just with Thrawn himself, but a lot of concepts are being pulled from that canon. And even though I don't think it fully works within the context of the movie Rise of Skywalker, I appreciate that all the Palpatine stuff was. I appreciate that there is a precedent with the Palpatine stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
and they're mining all the best stuff. It's not like you said, like the material's not totally trashed. It's just being reinterpreted, and that's totally fine.
They need to bring Plagueis back in though, because that novel doesn't conflict with anything, and it's one of the best Star Wars novels ever.
It is,
and it's pre everything, so they could just make it canon and it would be fine.
Yeah. Something else that the Plagueis novel does, and Alan, we can use this as a way to get some of your thoughts on Tales of the Jedi, because Plagueis also takes place concurrently with events happening in the Phantom Menace at one point.
Yes, it's a full lead up to Phantom Menace, and it makes Phantom Menace more interesting because we know what Palpatine's been up to heading into that, and it's a crime story. You know, it's an actual like Godfather type, you know, crime story, because Plagueis, at least within that story, is portrayed as a character much like Palpatine who operates in the shadows and in high society, and it's fascinating. I think what they should do is, with this Tales of the Jedi stuff, I think they've opened a really interesting door where they can hop around in timelines. And Tales of the Jedi needs to, whether they invent a separate series called Tales of the Sith, we need both. I need both. I need to see these dark Sith stories too. You know, I need, if not Palpatine himself, I need to know more about other Sith Lords. Because those Knights of the Old Republic games, the books that Alex was talking about in general, like there's so much good stuff there that fans want and can be mined in really new and interesting ways. So,
yeah, it would also be a way for them to help fill in all these gaps in the Darth Maul, who became Maul, like his story, which they've got a lot of blank spaces in the timeline there with him.
I know, and like I feel like the future of him in live action is very uncertain. And I know we know how things end with him, but I feel like that sliver that's left is what was set up at the end of Solo, and now we've got the comic tie-ins. That's all I've heard of, and I don't even know the stories.
That's kind of it.
But,
yeah, it's very silly. It's like it's 6 issue the War of the Bounty Hunters thing, and he plays into that because it's this whole Crimson Dawn, Crimson Reign thing. But the War of the Bounty Hunters thing, where Crimson Dawn like first comes into the story, and like Maul is around. He's never really central, but he's around. He's mentioned, and it's, you know, it was 6 issues of 5 different comic series, so 30 issues of comic books just for Han to wind up where he was going in the first place, which was to Jabba's palace. So that, I mean, there is some fun stuff that happened in there, and there's like a really fun scene where Hera fights Darth Vader in hand-to-hand combat, and she uses Teräs Käsi. And
Ooh.
like he gets, she survives the only way you can survive that fight, which is like something else comes up and Vader has to leave.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's still impressive. Yeah.
Jesus. I just love when Terrace Kazi comes up because that was a game my brother and I like relentlessly played when we were kids was Star Wars Masters of Terrace Kazi.
Yeah, and I appreciate that the writers have not let that game go.
Even
Because you
though
know
it's
how I
not
beat that
good.
game?
Huh.
I beat that game with Chewbacca, literally just hitting the kick button. If you play as Chewbacca and you just do kick, you can kick everyone off the edge of
Yeah, it was
fight,
terribly
screen.
balanced. The game was terribly balanced. There were characters you could not win with. Just straight up, were not good enough to win against any other character.
No.
The
ones who could only shoot a blaster. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It would have been more effective if they could just like bludgeon people with their blaster.
Yes.
Than shoot them in that game.
Credit, that is the first game where like I could just relentlessly swing a lightsaber at something until it collapsed. So like that was my first time getting that in a video game, which I'm always gonna
There was
remember.
that, and then like around the same time, Jedi Power Battles. I really
I never
liked
played that.
That was more like a run adventure game, but a lot of good lightsaber hack and slash in that. Really satisfying. Now I because I have to go by a certain time, I'd be remiss if I wanted to get into a little bit of Tales of Jedi. If we could. I know we've been brushing up a little bit.
Do it.
And then obviously we can get back to Andor as well. But with Tales, I just got to say, I've been waiting for more Dooku story for a very long time. So to see a lot of these quiet moments in his history that make him, I always thought he was interesting, but they didn't make him terribly sympathetic. But I also like the characters filled in a little bit better.
He had a perspective for once.
He wasn't just a plot function,
right?
Or just the villain to be the villain. And we saw getting to see him as a Jedi is so important, and to show that he actually cares about Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon was not a pawn to him. Qui-Gon was not someone for him to get a leg up. Dooku actually cared about him, and that's what messed him up. And I gotta say, that Sith Lord episode, everything with Yaddle, it messed me up, guys. It really did. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I feel like that happened to a lot of people, and that's a good thing. To be subverted that way in Star Wars now is.
I was saying
really
this to
something.
Travis last week. Like that episode feels like a bar napkin bet. That feels like Filoni and Favreau going out drinking, and Favreau going like, "I bet you can't make Yaddle dramatically relevant." And Filoni going, "Not only will I make Yaddle dramatically relevant, I will make this a key event in the lead up to the entire prequel trilogy in a way that you can't even imagine, and give someone else a character arc in the process." And Favreau just goes, "No." And then Filoni just goes and does this. That's what I think happened.
And now we need the Yaddle High Republic prequel series because she's so beloved overnight. And they killed her twice.
Yeah.
They got me that first time.
They got me that first time
like,
too.
Oh. And then even though when she gets out, that triumphant little moment, you're like, yeah, but she's still done. Like, even if Dooku's not going to do it, Sidious is there to close the deal. Yeah. So she's not getting out of there. It's just,
And especially because like she's not around in episode 2, so you knew something was happening there.
Right. And to see one of Yoda's species actually slain in battle was really scary.
Yeah,
because we've never seen that. We've never, like Yoda went out like a champ on his terms, and we don't know Grogu's fate. So, but we also know what it was like. We know what it's like to fear for Grogu's safety for like 2.5 seasons of television. So I have an attachment like that to this species because we've only seen 3 of them, and it makes them feel precious. And that's on top of Yaddle being a Jedi and a peaceful warrior and a noble warrior. There is that sense of extinction that I felt watching it, and it really added to the tragedy for me.
It would be crazy to rewatch The Phantom Menace, seeing her and knowing like, oh, she's like moments away from dying. By the end of the movie, she's dead.
Yeah,
off screen.
The next this guy's next extended cut of Phantom Menace is gonna like cut this into the middle of Phantom Menace. It's gonna be excellent. Adam, I'm talking about this dude who re-edited the entirety of Clone Wars into chronological order and made the 4.5-hour Revenge of the Sith Siege of Mandalore supercut, which is like amazing to watch if you ever have 4.5 hours.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about a lot of the re-edits in the Clone Wars era.
That's I can tell you which is the good stuff. We can have a different conversation off the air.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm intrigued. I also just own Clone Wars, a general rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
It's an
I've only watched
excellent
the
way to
series.
rewatch Clone Wars.
Yeah, I've only watched it beginning to end once, and then I've gone back to certain episodes. But
Yeah,
because Alex, you said the way that this guy does it, he cuts together all the arcs into like movies.
yes,
basically.
and then all of that is ordered chronologically. So like you can watch it straight through, and you're just watching a straight chronological story without like waiting multiple episodes in between like things that are right up next to each other or things happening out of order. It makes so much more narrative sense. I was very happy to. It was Angela's first time watching it. I was very happy to be able to show it to her that way because it's just like an easy to swallow viewing experience. And then just like watching the really good arcs as a single like hour and a half, 2-hour thing is really, really, really fun.
Please forgive me for mentioning this, and I promise I'll keep it quick. But I had a very similar experience. And Travis might be able to relate to this, although I think you have boys, I have a girl, Travis. But I watched the Disney Cinderella trilogy, and yes, it is a trilogy. I watched them this week, and first one I've seen countless times. Original Cinderella. I'm not mad at that movie. It's great.
No.
But Cinderella 2 and 3, not okay, and not horrible viewing experiences, mind you, but. I was watching them. I was like, this is like watching the Clone Wars, because hear me out. Cinderella 1, pretty straightforward. Cinderella 2 is an anthology movie. So it's like the mice are hanging out with the fairy godmother, and they're like, we need to put all these stories that we have with Cinderella into a new book. So they're telling these stories out of context about everything that's happened since the first movie. And so you get these snapshots of what people are up to, and it's fun. And then Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, is a time travel movie where all bets are off because the stepmother gets the wand from the fairy godmother and changes everything. And then there's like parallel universes. There's people like changing their physical appearance. And then her stepsister Anastasia, the redhead, has a romance in Cinderella 2 that takes place after the events in Cinderella 3. I'm just saying, it all feels like the Clone Wars. And it comes together like...
I cannot believe that Cinderella... I mean, I can believe it has 2 sequels because we have 47 Land Before Time movies, so I can believe that there's 3 Cinderellas. But to know that...
This is all during the Michael Eisner days.
But to know that the second 2 Cinderellas are both non-linear narratives is the most bonkers thing I've heard in weeks.
They get so insane. And I kind of respect it. Like Cinderella 3 is very ambitious. Cinderella 2 is not the greatest, but it's at least like, because it's anthologized, it goes quick. Cinderella 3 is like, we're gonna do time travel and magic at the same time.
Oh man.
And turn the stepmother into an actual sorceress, which is actually scary.
When is that from?
2001 was Cinderella 2 and 2007 was Cinderella 3.
Okay, so
and
Cinderella 3, most importantly, is post-Lost.
Yes.
Okay.
I Cinderella 3 definitely feels like the writers got the green light, they got the budget, and they're like, let's just see what they'll let us do, kind of a thing. And there's an extended chase sequence where Lucifer the cat gets turned into a jack-in-the-box by the mice by the wand, and he's bouncing along like a jack-in-the-box. It feels a little Twilight Zone-y, actually.
Part of me wishes you had not
Clone Wars.
contextualized as the cat and just said Lucifer as Chase.
Oh God, I love that the cat's name is Lucifer. It's so good. It's so weird, such a weird choice for 1950. Like,
well, it was back when Disney. This is something that Alex and I have a problem with: is the villainization of cats.
Yeah,
in cinema,
it's not
Cinderella
okay.
does it. Lady and the Tramp does it.
Yeah, man.
Well,
It's just people who are afraid to love an animal. They just demand total loyalty out of something like a dog rather than trying to earn an animal's respect.
Well, they tried to like make up for it all at once with Aristocats, and then they undo it all at the end with the Asian cat. And it's like you're watching the whole movie, you're like, this is okay, and then like that final like run with like all the weird stereotype cats, and then the Asian one is really bad, and it's just like, movie, you were fine, like
you're doing okay until right now, guys.
This part's so off-putting. Anyway, we're still, at least we're keeping it in the family, Disney, but
yeah, for sure.
To bring it back to Andor for me, I love that we got both Tales and Andor within close proximity, because I like having that variety with Star Wars. I like that Andor is different than anything I've ever seen in Star Wars thus far, and Tales of the Jedi has that sense of familiarity, but also these episodes of Tales, some of the darkest animated work I've seen in the Star Wars universe so far. Yeah. And not for dark's sake, earned.
No, it's just that the stories are dark.
Like watching an animal's life fade out of its eyes. Like I loved that the Baby Ahsoka episode. I did feel parallels to Grogu. And I think those were intended. And it's cool that we know that Ahsoka and Grogu know each other and all that too. Yeah, really dug Tales. I hope we get more of it. I hope they don't wait too long.
Yeah, I was saying I think we should get those every 6 months. Just give us six of these things every twice a year. Just keep putting it in my veins. It'll be great.
Just like what you said, like the past year between the Tales of the Jedi, Andor, Kenobi, Disney initially was very resistant to acknowledge the prequels at all. And, in fact, like they were part of like why the Clone Wars got canceled, but they have really just embraced the whole Clone Wars era and, the prequel era specifically, and it's great to see that happen.
Now let's see if they'll embrace their own era, because
that'll be interesting.
Because Andor is the first thing out of their own creation that's like really from something that came out of this version of Lucasfilm. So I really, really want all the stuff we saw play out in the sequels to get more story, because we had more than 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, and it's not all happening in The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
there's too much story to ignore there.
Yeah, and
we're focusing on these 19 years between 3 and 4 so much, and then the 30 years has been barely touched.
It's true. The Skeleton Crew is going to be taking place there as well, I think. Is that right, Alex? The new Skeleton Crew show? I think so. That and Ahsoka.
I think so. I forget that Skeleton Crew is a thing, and I also forget that it's not a code name. I forget that that's the actual name of the show.
And then supposedly we've got the Damon Lindelof movie happening post sequel trilogy.
No, he's making Cinderella. He's making Cinderella 4.
Ooh,
which is Star Wars 10. It's the same movie. Surprise. If it wasn't for the Watchmen TV show, I would be cringing at the idea of Lindelof making a Star Wars movie. But as it stands, he's got my good favor for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I'm trying to think of. So I dug Leftovers.
I couldn't do Leftover. I dropped out after most of the first season. I think I watched most of the first season, then I couldn't care.
It's
bad.
Well, I know. I actually I went back to it more than once. I understand. I kept leaving, and then it's like the second season, you got to go, and then the second season was great. The third season, I understand your fatigue. It was a process for me as well.
But yeah, I've heard good things, but just like I think for a long time I thought he was a guy that just had like really great ideas but didn't really know how to stick a landing. He loved to post questions but didn't want to know the answers, and now I feel like he has a better sense of answering the questions.
Yes.
In a fulfilling way, in a way that like doesn't feel just like an afterthought or something. Like I think he has gotten better as a writer, and I think the work he did on Watchmen was like really, really fantastic.
Is incredible.
Yeah.
As somebody who holds the Watchmen book in higher regards than like the Bible at this point, like it's crazy. Like he, just paid such homage and respected that work and stuck the landing the way he did.
Yeah.
What I love about the Watchmen series is it makes the book and the Zack Snyder movie, it works with both of them because it most importantly connects to the book. But if you think about there are people who have only seen the movie, and if they're getting if they're extracting some of those themes that we love from the book from that movie, I think that's a good thing. But then you have the series come along that just transcends that movie, but honors the tradition of the book and the themes of the book in a way that are just so powerful. Like for me, when I that series came out, I went back and I rewatched the Snyder film, and it made me enjoy it more. I still criticized what I criticized about that movie, but like it did make it a little bit more palatable for me. And I think that's a testament. That's just one of the side benefits that show stands on its own completely.
Totally.
And I can't wait for him to do some more Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I'll be psyched. And then someone's movie is moving forward, right? Someone wasn't there just some news like one of these movies is getting geared up, or was it Damon's movie that's getting geared up?
That's the Damon Lindelof.
Okay,
movie,
so that was the
recent
one.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not Taika's and it's not Rogue Squadron.
Taika's still like officially on the schedule, but like he has not like written his movie as far as I know.
Right.
But,
and Ryan Johnson's too busy taking Netflix's money currently still to do Star Wars, right? That's the thing. Or maybe he's getting...
If the Ryan Johnson movies ever happen, I'll be blown away.
Yeah.
Me too. It'll be great. I'll be so excited. Anyway.
Well, I think with that...
I'm excited for next week's episode. That's what I want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Me too. Let's and we'll go ahead and start wrapping it up there. So with that, Adam, where can the good people find more of you?
I'm going to be doing a fundraiser to buy everyone in Cassian's precinct or whatever they call him there, wherever he is in that prison. I want to do a fundraiser. Let's get them some flip-flops. And
great.
They can get the hell out of there. Because that's all it takes, man. They get some flip-flops.
Just need a little bit of insulation.
Take that place
Change
over.
the world.
Start a GoFundMe.
I saw him looking at that shoe rack. I saw him. I'm so ready for whatever's going to happen. I know so many people are going to die on both sides. I don't care. I just want to. I need to see this next episode so bad.
Yeah.
People can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Eisendor, IZANTHOR, and beyond that, I'm on Video Drew's channel periodically, Matt No's channel, doing Settle the Score periodically. Yeah, I'll be around.
Very nice. And Alex, how about you?
That's a fun thing. You can go to my Letterboxd at Reverend Beastly, which is a name I made up when I was 16 years old, and it's still here. 15 years old, maybe.
That sounds like an amazing episode of Tales from the Crypt. I didn't see that.
If only I had registered my name at gmail.com when Gmail was in beta, and not the username that no one but me has ever selected on any website ever. But, we live and we learn. But yeah, letterboxd.com/Reverend Beastly is what I've been watching, or you can go to my website, abrunel.com, and see a resume of things I have worked on and get in touch and hire me as a camera assistant on your next thing that has camera assistant needs.
Sweet.
Yeah, you want to shoot a movie in New England? We'll be in touch.
Shit, yep. Fly me out, pay me. Let's talk. Let's do it.
All right. And me, you can find at Travis Fishburne. You can find the show at Who Watches Pod on Twitter. You can reach the show at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com. We stream live to Twitch, Facebook, YouTube every week. Please subscribe, review, leave all the likes, and until next week, stay fat and satisfied.
So fat and satisfied.